This is the first video in sort of a workshop that will take you step by step to construct a sonata from scratch. And so in my video on sonata-allegro form, it was an overview of the form itself and of the overall form. Each video in this series will cover a different aspect more specifically of the process. And to clarify, I'm not talking about a multi-movement sonata. We're focusing on either the first movement or a one-movement sonata or a piece called something else that's in the form of sonata-allegro. And it will incorporate the introductory section and the coda, both of which are optional for the form. So if in the process you decide that they don't fit your what you're trying to express, by all means leave them out. Two really important points for sonata-allegro form. One is forethought and the other is contrast. And I'll go into each of those in detail, and along with a couple of musical examples. Now, if you've heard so-called neoclassical music, like I think Yanni and John Tesh are examples. This is in no way putting down any type of music. I'm using it just to show a contrast that a lot of times that type of music is somewhat free-flowing, not a whole lot of thematic structure and development. It's usually a melodic figure or an idea that's repeated or shown throughout the song. Whereas in sonata-allegro form, you have to have in mind where you're going to go next. So rather than sitting down to your instrument and playing around until you find something that sounds good and quite literally playing by ear, you have in mind the idea that you're trying to express, and then you use contrast to emphasize your main point, kind of like an outline in a speech. So think about it. Think ahead of time the scheme that you want to use. In the classical period, what was common was to use either a major key in the primary for the primary theme, and then the subordinate theme in a related major key, or the primary theme in a minor key, followed by a related major key for the subordinate theme, like the relative or parallel minor, usually the relative major for the subordinate theme. There are other schemes that work fine, just kind of know where you're going to go. I personally like the minor major scheme because it shows more contrast. Now, the introductory section can serve several purposes if you decide to use one. Sometimes called the introductory theme. It can either be used to contrast the tonal center that you're leading into, or it can establish the tonal center from the very beginning. A plain example of each. So in Chopin's G minor ballade, even though it's not a sonata, it illustrates the point. The main theme goes like this. Okay, so that's the main theme. Now to introduce that, he uses a contrasting introduction in A flat major. So we see that by using contrast and then gradually leading into the tonal center is quite effective. The other purpose that an introduction can serve is to immediately establish the mood and the tonality. For example, in Beethoven's, I think it's Opus 13, the Pathétique Sonata, immediately he introduces the tragic C minor tonality. primary theme is also in C minor. So those are two purposes that they can serve. So have in mind before you write the introduction, if you choose to use it, where you're going to go with it. So what main idea are you trying to get across in your music? Is it one of, is it a heroic main theme contrasted by something else in the subordinate theme? Is it tragic? Is it moody, romantic? Whatever it is, have that in mind, and then think about how you want to establish that by using an introduction. And also think about the symmetry of the form, because what can oftentimes be done is almost like mirroring the introduction in the coda, or at least part of it. In fact, that was done more after the classical period. From the Romantic period on, that became more common. Prior to that, it was more usual to be very straightforward. Primary theme, subordinate theme, repeat, then have the development section, followed by the recapitulation of the primary and subordinate theme, now both in the same key, and that's the end. So Beethoven kind of overlapped the classical and Romantic period. He started changing, he really revolutionized the sonata-allegro form. So we can see lots of examples of that. Hope this has helped with the introductory section. So following this, we'll talk about the primary and subordinate themes themselves.